Hello, welcome to today's live attorney chat. My name is attorney Desiree Koger-Gustafson with Immigration for Couples. For those of you who are new to our firm, we host these Facebook live chats to give you updated information about the navigating the immigration process from a couple's perspective mostly. And we just work to help couples navigate that process on a daily basis, and that's exactly what this firm is dedicated to doing. Today, we are going to be discussing larger topics, so I hope you grabbed that second cup of coffee. I know I did. We are going to look at the adjustment of status process, specifically looking for the fiance visa, K-1 to adjustment of status. What do I do next? I've entered the United States. What do I do next? Then after that, we're going to look into the affidavit of support a little bit more. That is part of that adjustment process. And so we'll be looking at that and what if I don't make enough? So just know that if you're joining us live today, please feel free to put questions and comments in the chat. I'll try to get to those as I can. And then if for some reason it's a larger topic, hopefully we can hit on that later on in one of our other chats. So let's dive right into the adjustment of status process. What does that mean? Let's back up a little bit in that we've already submitted a fiance visa, and that's the specific type of adjustment that we're talking about. So we've submitted the K-1. It's been approved by USCIS. It's been forwarded onto the NVC. We've already satisfied our documentation phase there, applied for the DS-160. It's then forwarded on to the consulate, and we have scheduled our interview, had the interview, obtained the visa, and we're ready to enter the United States. As you might remember, in filing for that K-1 visa, you basically stated, yes, I intend to marry my U.S. citizen or petitioner upon entry within 90 days of the U.S. So once you get here, that clock is ticking. Many people start planning their wedding as best they can before they get here. So then upon entry, they usually marry pretty quickly. Some are closer to that 90-day range. I will say it is our goal here at Immigration for Couples to file for the adjustment of status and all that that means, which I'll go over here, within that 90-day period. So if you are taking a little bit longer to plan that big wedding that you want and it's closer to the 90 days, we would go ahead and start preparing that full application so that once you're married, we can just add in a few last items in regards to the wedding itself and get that submitted for you before the 90 days. That way it puts you in the best possible situation and light with regard to USCIS. So let's talk about the adjustment of status. Obviously, there are several ways to apply for adjustment of status. There's employment, there's some humanitarian ways, and then of course, there is the family petitioner or family way. And today we're going to specifically talk about applying within the United States. So your largest part of your application is going to be the actual green card application, the 485. That application has a whole host of eligibility questions, biographical information about you as well as the petitioner and people just in your household. It also we'll have to put in some relationship evidence. So again, you're trying to satisfy that the marriage is for love and not for immigration purposes. So we'll have to walk through all of that again, and you won't be done providing that information as well. We also will possibly do an abbreviated medical. So if you remember with the K-1 visa, you've had your medical before entering the United States. So as long as they gave you what you need to be able to supply that with your adjustment of status petition, you may not have to do another medical exam. Sometimes there's an abbreviated one that needs to be done because we just don't have quite all the information that we need. So know that that could be in there. That is a separate fee. It is paid directly to the physician itself. And then, of course, you'll need to supply the fees, and those are dependent on the category that you are applying under. So it would be different for a marriage adjustment of status if you have to, if you're applying from the inside the United States, you didn't come in on a K visa. So it is a little different depending on that class. Also in that adjustment of status application, there'll be two other smaller, but sometimes even as important applications that we submit with it, and that is the 765, which is the work authorization, and the 131, which is the travel document. Both of those might adjust faster or adjudicate faster, so you might get those before you get your interview for the adjustment of status, but all of that goes together in the same application. And then lastly is the affidavit of support, and this one is filed specifically by the petitioner and on the beneficiary's behalf, the person that's applying for the green card. And honestly, that could be a whole video in and of itself. There's a lot of financial documents that have to go into that, and essentially just proving that you can meet the income requirements for supporting a foreign national here in the US. And that would need to be applied for regardless. So what they're looking for is having verification of employment, pay stubs, and last 3 years of taxes to show back history. And so we'll get into a little bit more of that in the second half of our video. So let's say we get all of those documents together. We, of course, have the marriage certificate for that K-1 visa holder and their spouse. We have good relationship evidence to prove bona fides that the marriage was for love and not for an immigration benefit. We package that all up together with the fees, and we send that into USCIS. The average adjustment of status application can be anywhere from 200 pages to 500 pages. They can be quite lengthy, and we want to supply lots of evidence, of course, relationship evidence, but we also need to make sure that all that evidence is reviewed, and that there could be nothing in there that might make an officer question the relationship itself. So there's quite a bit of strategy that goes into putting those applications together just to put you and the couple in the best light for immigration purposes. So what happens after we submit that adjustment of status application? You would, within probably 2 to 4 weeks, sometimes it takes up to 6 weeks. We saw that a lot in COVID. You would get a receipt notice. That receipt notice would basically have a case number on it that you can then go on to uscis.gov and track your case to be able to put that case number in. And if you just put online case status into the search bar in uscis.gov, you'll be able to pull up that case status online request. And you can put your receipt number in at any time and be able to look and see where your case is in processing. After that, there is always a possibility of getting a request for evidence. Many of those are received pretty quickly because it happens right as the mailroom receives your application. If they can't check a certain box, they usually will send a request for evidence to supply something extra. Of course, that's a possibility, always something that needs to be prepared for in full. We'll discuss that a little bit more in the next section as well. After that, you'll receive what's called a biometrics notice. This would require you to show up at the local office, take your fingerprints. There'll be no case discussion at that point, so it's nothing to worry about. You just need to show up with your identifying documents and have those fingerprints taken. The last part is probably the hardest part for the clients themselves, and that is the wait. So the adjustment of status is processed at local offices around the nation, but it could take anywhere from a year up to 2 years to adjudicate all of that paperwork, to have an officer actually look through it. Once they've looked through it, then you will be scheduled for an interview, and you will then arrive at the local office. You would have a whole set of other information that you need to provide at your interview. And you both need to show up, both parties, couples need to show up to that interview. And if it's approved, you could be issued your green card within 10 days, within 2 weeks. You could get that in the mail. So additionally, if you have been married less than 2 years, that green card that's issued to you would be a conditional green card and only good for 2 years. At the end or towards the end of that 2 years, you want to make sure you apply for the removal of the conditions on that green card before it expires. That way there's no lapse in benefits for you. So just know that that's out there. Once you apply for that removal of conditions, you would be issued your 10-year green card. So that's kind of adjustment of status from an affidavit of or from a K-1 visa perspective.